At the Cleveland Ministry Collective, we believe local ministries deserve to be heard. That's why when multiple national Christian media companies moved towards syndication and away from community, we stepped in. And one of the ways we uplift local voices is through the Third Place podcast. Each episode highlights the people and stories shaping ministries in Northeast Ohio. Voices you won't hear on syndicated radio. To learn more about how we at the Cleveland Ministry Collective are working to foster connection, collaboration, and community among Northeast Ohio ministries, go to clevelandministrycollective.org. While you're there, would you prayerfully consider a donation to facilitate a successful launch of this brand new venture Lauren and I are undertaking? Submit your secure and tax-deductible donations now at clevelandministrycollective.org. That's clevelandministrycollective.org. Okay, here's today's episode. This is the Third Place podcast, recording from the JLP CPA sponsored studio. I'm Brian Dolan, and right next to moi, Lauren Cuevas.
Home is your first place, work is your second place, and this is your third place where the Christian community gathers.
And joining us for the entire episode today, one of our favorite people on the entire planet / the galaxy.
Oh my gosh.
Lisa Anderson.
Yay. You didn't even check with Lauren ahead of time to see if that was a viable
Are you kidding me?
She's like, I think Lisa's about like third or fourth, but whatever. Okay.
No, I know that's not true.
You
and
guys
in fact,
sort that out among yourselves.
Go ahead.
I have to share the first time I didn't even get to meet Lisa. I saw her speak in an audience, and that experience was so amazing for me. So years ago, it was probably like 15 years ago.
Yeah, when was this?
I was working at WMBI in Chicago.
Okay.
And we did a listener trip to Colorado Springs, which is also known as Christian Mecca.
Yeah.
And you live in Colorado Springs right now, don't you?
I do.
So
Great
for those,
place.
do you ever call it Christian Mecca, or is that just something I say?
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, we've usurped the title from Wheaton, Illinois, which was kind of the, Mecca number one. And then now Colorado Springs, we have, I want to say it's 110 Christian ministries here.
Wheaton
town.
doesn't have that many.
Yeah,
No.
It's a lot. So
Like if you could think of big Christian ministries, they probably have headquarters in Colorado Springs.
Yes.
And so we went on, it was kind of a funny little let's go see all the Christian ministry trip. And so one of our stops was at Focus on the Family. And we went into the campus of Focus on the Family. And we were all like, look at us, Focus on the Family, we're here. And we went into this auditorium, and they had come up with like a welcome thing for all the moody listeners that were there from Chicago. And they had one guy come out, and they had somebody else. And then Lisa Anderson came out. And the team of us who were on this broadcast team were like, who is this? Because you were so like far and above talented of everybody else we had heard from. And you were just like a presence in the room where we were like, who is this? How do we meet her? And how do we get her on our show? And you were on our show ever since. Wherever I was working. It's totally true. I don't know if you remember that event because you've done so many of those, but it was awesome.
I totally do. But did I ever actually meet you at that event? Like,
Yeah,
did you even say hi?
No, not at the event. It was later because I was a little geeky producer that was like, would you like some coffee, ma'am? Or something at that point.
Okay.
But we had you on.
A couple of the other, big boss dudes I remember talked to me. And so in my mind is that event. And I remember going up there, and it was standard issue. I'm always pulled in for things. I'm never the A talent, when I do these things. I'm always like, well, let's let Lisa say a few words.
Let's let the lady come in.
I usually go off the rails and say something crazy, which is me just air quotes being honest. And then, but I'm just like, why don't we just like tell it like it is, So that's probably what I did. But yeah.
You took over the room. I mean, and you did the same thing at our Renew Women's Conference.
Correct.
Where you did a breakout and you did main stage, and it was far and away the best thing we did. And I knew it would be. Mm-hmm. We all did when you were coming in.
Very sweet.
And I also remember that you were a guest we did a live broadcast from the Focus on the Family studios. And it was like, what was it, like 4 a.m. Mountain or something, because it was a Central Time morning
It was
show.
bad, yeah.
And you came out, you had like your skull earrings. I was like, this is the coolest Christian woman I've ever met in my whole life. You love skulls, right?
I do. But you know what? I used to say that on the show all the time. And then I had to finally stop saying it because people were sending me skulls. And I had to clarify because I'm like, no, okay, here's the deal, y'all. I like Hello Kitty skulls. I don't like angry, scary skulls. Like people were sending me like full on Halloween. Like I got a Halloween like skull punch bowl from someone. And I'm like, this nonsense has to stop. This is like, I had a phone case that was a Hello Kitty skull and it was so cute and all this. And
I don't
I'm like,
understand
no,
Hello Kitty skull.
yeah.
Because you like skulls, Lauren.
I do have 2 skeleton tattoos, yeah. Planning a third. And my son, he's 2, carries around 5, about 3-foot skeletons around our house. He carries them around and dresses them like dolls.
That is very legit. That is okay, but tell me about these tattoos. But is it like is it a skull with like a dagger going into the eye and like blood coming out of it? Okay, so then you're okay with the skulls, but I'm like, y'all, don't bring me into like
scary stuff,
Halloween occultic level
like
stuff,
spooky.
because I love Jesus and I want to still stand for truth and be okay with that. Yeah,
swords through the eyes.
And to be honest, like I feel like if we could just convince you to move to Cleveland, and I've been doing this for 10 years now, I feel like you and Lauren would be best friends. Like you and Lauren have a lot of similar qualities,
Yeah,
but
you made us
also
talk
have
about
some.
Barbies on air last time.
I did.
Oh,
yeah,
totally.
you did.
Because did you both have all the stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Well,
both did.
I didn't because my family was too poor, but I had Barbies, and I actually inherited like legit. Had my sisters not cut their hair and put pins in their ears, like they're Barbies from like the 50s, some of the originals. So I wouldn't even have to work now had they thought ahead and not desecrated them. But but my family like didn't have money when I was growing up, so I would have to go to the neighbor girls' houses like after Christmas because they each got 2 sisters. Okay, they each got a Barbie townhouse. They each got a Barbie Corvette. They each, and I didn't get anything basically except these hand-me-down Barbie things, and so I had to go and hang with them because they had an awesome haul. Yeah,
I'm not sure how the friendship would work then, because you were the rich kid with all the stuff.
We were not rich.
I know, it still blows my mind. Pastor's kid had
we were not
the
rich.
Barbie mansion with the elevator. She had the plane,
oh my goodness,
the car.
I had the plane. Yeah, that was
what.
There's a picture of me at Christmas opening the Barbie plane, and my face is just shocked.
Can you believe she got a pastor's kid?
Okay, like what? Were you totally prosperity gospel or what? Like,
no.
How did this happen?
Standard regular.
I'm not even sure you guys were Christians.
I don't know.
Very
I don't know
questionable.
how it happened. I'll have to ask.
That's questionable. Well, hopefully
maybe they
the
were
Lord
hand-me-downs
will-
and I didn't know. Like maybe they like reboxed them from my sisters. I don't know.
Well,
you just thought.
I just thought they were new.
Yeah.
One of my other favorite things about you is all the stories about your dear sweet mom who's with the Lord.
Oh, my word.
And I was reminding Lauren about the dating advice your mother gave you, which was something along the lines. And she gave you lots of advice, but one of them was have fewer opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of my mom's dating advice. I mean, hello, I'm still single, so obviously none of it worked.
Obviously, it didn't work.
But
She had, it was 3. That one came in 3s. So that nugget of advice from my mom was, don't wear too high of heels because you're towering over men and intimidating them.
Okay.
Second was never wear animal prints because it was just too aggressive. And then third was, while you're at it, don't share so many opinions. So, yeah. So
that's so great. And when I brought it up to you, what did you say? I thought that was pretty clever.
I said if I got any further down the road of not being married, that's probably the advice I would have been given. Not have so many opinions. It just so happens that my husband was raised by a very opinionated single mom. So he was like, I don't care. Say whatever you want.
It just makes me mad at men.
That's good.
What about men?
Like,
What about them?
like what? No, like, what's the deal? You don't like women with opinions. What's wrong with you?
No.
I don't
Okay, Brian, I'm going to let you in on something that you're going to. This is like, I don't even know if you have the emotional metal to handle this.
Probably not.
So, but I'm going to tell you. I have actually known guys who said they would only date a preschool teacher or an elementary school teacher because of that nurturing vibe that they feel is so necessary for women to have. And only women that teach younger children are going to have that. So they would just systematically cut out every other woman out of their acquaintance at church and beyond if she did not hold those job titles. And then, of course, the assumption was then we'll get married and she'll quit her job and just be like, laundering clothing and doing whatever at home after that.
In a very gross way, like being your mommy, not your mom, your mommy. Right? Isn't that what that is?
Yeah.
Yes. And also yeah, you're right. I can't nurture my own children because I'm not a preschool teacher. What? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, what they're saying is, I would like you to not just be my mommy, but also be a hybrid of that and that first grade teacher I loved so much. And you should be that for me.
Sick.
And we should be married. And that's how you treat me? Ew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we wonder about all the scary, moms, that are currently in their 60s and 70s. That's scary with their sons and daughter-in-laws.
Yeah. Right.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah. And that, to me, it set up, it was proof that these guys are kind of like either they were so lacking confidence in their own, just who they were, that it was like positioning someone else to kind of look up towards them and be like, okay, well, I'm this and I'm that. Yeah. It was just kind of afraid of strength in certain ways or whatever. I don't know. It was weird.
And you even shifted your voice to a little bit more breathy when you were doing that, which is what he would want.
I'm like,
oh, how do you work so hard for us?
Well, I'm thinking to myself, there are so many other legitimate reasons to reject dating me. Now you're going to put this one on me. I mean, I could give you 25 bona fide reasons why no one should be dating me.
But because I'm not a preschool teacher?
Let's not add that to the pile. Okay. Yeah.
Now, you always do have great dating stories. Do you have any recent ones, or are you taking a break right now?
Let me see. I think my most recent one, I'm trying to think of what my most recent one was, because I feel like there was a pretty good one.
This is another reason you have to move to Cleveland, because the men in Colorado Springs have got problems, it sounds like.
I don't know if they're much better here.
They're not?
I know. That's why I feel sorry for the women here, because I feel like there's a glut of women in Christian ministry, and then the guys are few and far between, and they're not, they're either snowboarding or rock climbing on the weekends instead of being in church. And I'm like, that's problematic. So now I have then I have to just sermonize off of that, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I know. I'll have to think if it comes to me, I'll circle back. Yeah.
One more mom story, just because I love to hear you tell it. Can you tell me the story of your mom at the bank when she didn't understand? Do you remember this one?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Oh, my goodness.
This is so good. And she was early stage dementia at this point, right? No?
This was late stage dementia. She was living with me at this point. So my mom lived with me here in Colorado Springs for the last 2.5 years of her life. And she had dementia. She had dementia by the time she passed away, about 10 years. So she was pretty much she was totally mobile. She knew who I was. She was good most of the time in the moment. But I think she pretty much thought she moved out here so that she and I together could go into an assisted living. And that, she thought that that's what my home was. And then my friend Juliana, who's my housemate, I think she just thought she was one of the hired caregivers or something. So there was always a disconnect, and I'd have to tell her, Juliana's our friend. And, my mom had a love-hate relationship with her. So it was tricky. But so we were negotiating we had to do some of my mom's retirement stuff. So we went to the bank to fully figure out and transfer some money out of her IRA and all this stuff. So we had an appointment, but this is on a Friday afternoon. And so the bank is pretty full because the teller line is people literally depositing physical checks, which apparently people still do. I don't even know. But there were, probably 3 teller lines with 5 people each. So that was all stacked up. We're sitting there and we get called by this precious guy who looked like he was in his 20s, but he looked like he had a, companion career as a Ralph Lauren model. So
why do they all look like that?
He comes over. he comes over and brings us over to his desk. And so we're on the middle of the floor and he starts going through all these papers and he's like, okay, ladies, well, I've drawn this up and I'm just going to need some signatures. And so because I'm my mom's power of attorney, I'm going through everything, signing. And he's talking through all this as he's doing it. My mom is just sitting next to me, complete deer in the headlights, because she's like, not sure what's going on here, but I'm with my daughter, so it's okay. And so she's just kind of complacently sitting there. So he's still rambling on. And all of a sudden I hear next to me and I look over and what's great is I see my mom sitting there. Her eyes are shut, one hand in the air. And she's like, Lord, we don't know what is going on here. And we probably never will. But we give it to you and put it in your hands for you to superintend for our good and for your glory. Amen. 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 And by this time, the entire bank is just silent. And everyone in the teller line is, because she was pretty proclamatory, if that's a word here. I mean, she was claiming it. Okay. So everyone in the teller line just stopped. All the tellers are just paused. The other people on the floor, this precious Ralph Lauren model is just looking at us like, did I do something wrong? What's going on here? I'm being, some kind of anointing is going to happen. And then she just looked at him and she said, you know what? I'm just going to give you a kiss. And she just stood up and walked over and gave him a big kiss and then came and sat back down. And I just said to him, I just looked at him and I said, well, I think we're good to go. I said,
I think we're done here.
Yeah. Lord, we don't know what's going on. We probably never will.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that a great story? Oh, gosh.
At least she went to Jesus, She was like, I don't know what's happening, so I'm going to talk to Jesus about it.
She knew that it was not her concern at this point. So
I always forget about the kiss, too. That's just like, that's almost like a Seinfeld episode kind of moment.
Yeah.
It's like Jerry Stiller, but your mom.
My mom was amazing because especially when she lived with me, especially near the end with the dementia and stuff, it was like with women, you didn't know. Most of the time you could pretty much assume that she was going to hate you. Okay. Women, it was very dicey, but men, especially men in their 20s to their 40s, probably could have gotten her to go into space. I mean, let's be honest. So we had a situation where my mom, this is just another awesome story. Like my mom got a knee replacement and she was just decided she was not going to do PT. And we're like, well, Mom, you need to do PT or you will not be walking again. Okay, so let's just tell it to you straight. And she was living, this is before she moved in with me. So she was living in her little farm town in northern Minnesota. And they were actually sending a PT to her. She didn't even have to go into the big town.
She just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, but she was, so they were sending this person. She's like, no, I don't need that. And so finally they're like, we need to stop coming because she's not even doing anything. So I thought this is like the Holy Spirit, y'all. God put it on my heart to call and say, okay, well, I know that Ashley has been coming and she is fantastic and she is such a precious Minnesotan who is so nice and so awesome. But I need to ask you, do you have any guys who could maybe come instead? And they said, well, we could send out Jesse. And I said, please do.
Sounds cute. Send him over.
And Jesse came, and Jesse was about 32, I think. And all of a sudden, my mom was doing PT like you would think that she was on the U.S. Olympic team. And she got that knee rehabilitated and just moved on forward in her life. And it was amazing. So, yeah.
Isn't that something with dementia, too, where you're like less inhibited? So for much of your life, your mom was kind of boy crazy, but she kept it under control.
Yeah. And then it's just all bets are off. I mean, my mom, this is where I'm a little bit concerned about my future because I like to think I'm the perfect combo of both my parents. So my dad is much, he had a much meeker, milder, personality. So I'm kind of like, maybe this will temper out. But when I see my mom and myself, it's very concerning because she was very direct pre-dementia, and then after dementia, it just kind of went off the rails. And then you're like, we don't know what she's going to say, but she's probably going to say it. So, yeah. So I feel like there might be something like that in my future.
Well, because there is something about getting older where I think you just stop caring what people
Right.
think and you talk louder.
Uh-huh.
My parents took my grandmother to a buffet years ago when she was still living, God bless her. And she was probably 90-ish. And she didn't go to buffets very often. I mean, because everything's too much food. I don't know why my parents even did this. And so they're sitting at this buffet eating, and my grandma's kind of staring off in the distance. And my mom goes, Mom, what are you doing? What are you looking at? She goes, I'm looking at all the fat people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really loud.
Yeah. No, Brian, I was able to make one trip to the DMV with my mom, and that was the only trip I was going to make, because I'm telling you, you go to the DMV and you talk about, like, I mean, we're talking full sleeve tats, we're talking piercings, we're talking homeless people, obese people, whatever. And Mom was every 10 seconds was like, look at that one. Look at and then she was upset. I mean, you put that on top of, like, she was upset that she actually had to wait in the line. And I'm like, Mom, this is the DMV. Your number says like 420. We're here for a while, okay? And she's like walking up to the front. Hello, my name is Dorothy. I have not been called yet. I have not been called. You know, and she would do this like every 15 minutes. And I'm like, Mom, you have not been called. It's not, but it was just like outrageous, you know. So finally I'm like, you know, saying to people, she has dementia. She has dementia. You know, please, you know, sorry.
Was that the phrase she was using? Look at that one?
Yeah. Look at that one. Look at that one. Yeah.
Could they hear her say that?
For sure, because she's like shouting it out. But I was trying to like make it sound like I was hoping that it was kind of like indistinct, like, because the room was so full of
who could
people.
it be?
Sure.
Like, who could it be? You know, it could be any of these people, quite frankly. So, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Your mom's stories. And God bless you for caring for her all those years. It's just,
Oh my word.
oh,
It was
we could just
hard.
end it all right now. We could end the episode. That'd be just plenty. You have any more mom stories? Any other favorites you want to share?
I know. I was trying to think. When you were talking about, you were talking about your grandma. It was right.
Yep, my grandma
Yeah.
Agnes. Looking at all the
That
fat people.
Well, Agnes, just Agnes alone means there's going to be
Right.
something awesome with that. So I know
Yeah.
it was making me think of another one that I had. It was, I think it was along the lines of, well, again, this is being direct, but like a little too direct. So, and of course, remember, my mom was living in northern Minnesota at the time. They had a couple in their church who was trying to get out on the mission field, but they kept having kids. And so their support kept going up. And so my mom's like, they need to stop having kids. Okay.
She's not wrong.
And I'm like,
if they want
Mom,
to do that.
yeah. I'm like, okay, first of all, I said, that's rude. Secondly, you and Dad were missionaries in the Philippines and you had 6 kids. So I don't even think this is your
You can't even say.
bone in the fight, you know, whatever. This is not your dog in the fight. So I'm just like, why are you even talking about this? Because this is a little pot kettle. And she, like, without missing a beat, she said, that is entirely different, because what in the world were your father and I supposed to do on a Saturday night in the 50s in the Philippines? Like, and that was just like, case closed. Like, other people
There's
should
lots
just
more to
be
do now.
watching movies. Yeah, or doing, and so it was like she was standing her ground of like, they should know better, because just play a board game or watch a movie or something. You don't
There's
need
activities now.
You don't need to be making babies, okay? So there you have it. Yeah. Now, and again, you imagine her telling this, because she was telling this to people in church of like, this was her solution to this problem. And all these precious little small town Minnesotans are just like, okay,
Didn't
Dorothy,
say
thank
anything
you."
to her.
Yeah.
Right.
Talked
Too
about
nice.
it on the drive home, but yeah.
For
Oh my gosh.
sure. You know that all they're going to do, I mean, you don't say anything to anyone's face. You only talk behind their backs. So what are we even doing?
What else are we going to do on Saturday?
In the 50s in the Philippines.
Yeah.
That's so great. Okay, Lisa, You're the best. Okay, that does it. You're moving to Cleveland, and you're going to
Okay.
join the Third Place podcast. The three
sounds
of us
super
would be a
Yes.
force to be reckoned with, let me tell you. Whew, I got to get some air in my lungs here. I'm getting lightheaded from laughing. Okay. So there's no way to shift gears in this, but hey, guess what? We have something else in common. We all got laid off.
Yay!
Hey, we did it.
We did it. Well, actually, we didn't do anything.
Well, and to be fair, we got laid off first. So,
So-
nah, boo-boo.
Yeah, you led the way.
Yeah,
I feel like
and
it wasn't even too far ahead of you. I feel like it was pretty soon afterwards.
we got laid off in late May. What about you?
Late May, mid-September.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of a timeline of history, that's basically the same day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you and I have been friends now for many years. And so we were texting when I called you when I got laid off. You called me when I got laid off. We're just like laid off buddies.
Yeah.
And it's an experience, is it not? How are you doing?
Yeah, I mean it's wild, and our situations were a little bit different. It's funny because I don't know. Tell me about your experience. This is the first time I've ever been laid off. So so that was new to me, and in terms of how I was laid off, my entire the entire division that I kind of lead, and it's at Focus on the Family, was eliminated. And so that was the decision was made for me. And it was just kind of like part and parcel of, hey, we're getting rid of this, which I guess, there's a kindness in that of like, okay, well, we don't, it's not that we hate you. We're just done with your ministry. So there was that.
Yeah.
I feel like, you guys really experienced something pretty sudden, whereas I'm being given grace. I mean, even now as this airs, I'm still employed, but I definitely have a termination date. And so I'm looking towards that. And it's the luxury of that is it's giving me the freedom to end things appropriately, to wrap everything up. The ministry that I've been leading now for 15 years, believe it or not, is called Boundless, and that was around before I was here. And so I have 27 years worth of digital files, of history, of content that I'm trying to appropriately wrap up. I don't know if that will be archived or where that will go. So there's a grace in being able to have the time and the looking ahead to do this well. But really it's like any other situation, regardless of how it happens. It is literally showing up and having to be open-handed of like, God, this decision has been made. And so you have to tell me what is next, and I have to walk forward in faith. And so that is equally exciting and scary.
Lauren and I want to take a brief moment before we continue today's episode to thank our sponsors. First of all, did you know I have a brand new morning show? That's right. It's called Uplifted Mornings with Brian. And our sponsor is Upliftd Stream from KHCB Media Group. We're so grateful for their sponsorship and their attention to my new morning show. Check it out weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. Central, 7 to 9 Eastern. We have a lot of music, worship music. We've got scripture. I have devotional thoughts, try to share some funny stories, dad jokes, Bible quizzes, things like that. For more information how you can listen to my new morning show on the Upliftd Stream, just go to upliftedstream.org. That's upliftedstream.org, or just download the KHCB mobile app. We also want to thank our sponsor, JLP CPAs. If you're a small business owner, you already wear dozens of hats. You don't want to have to worry about things like taxes, payroll, financial reporting, budgets, balance sheets, all those kinds of things. Let our friends at JLP CPAs take care of that for you. They're a firm focused on small businesses. They're a local Northeast Ohio company, and you ought to check them out so that you can focus on what you're good at in your small business. For more information, go to jlpcpas.com. Again, jlpcpas.com. And finally, we'd like to thank our friend David Safransky and Edgewater Investment Group for being a sponsor of today's episode. Have your finances been overwhelming? Are you stressed about your future? You should talk to Dave and his team at Edgewater Investment Group. They'll help you with things like budgeting, retirement, investing, and they'll be honest and straightforward. So you want more information about how you can get connected and get their help with your future financially? go to edgewaterig.com. Again, that's edgewaterig.com. Thanks again to our sponsors. And now we'll keep going with today's episode. Yeah, we can take turns on this one. I was a try-hard and still am a try-hard, as my kids would call it. And so I'm always like trying to be the best employee. So I don't have any good getting fired stories. Most people I know have these great stories like, yeah, my boss was a jerk, so I finally told him off and I got fired. And I'm like, oh, I was just like, thank you, sir, may I have another, and I'd never been laid off. And so it's just been to be a guy at 46 years old, having never been fired or laid off, it's just weird. Mm-hmm. I'm weird. And so that was a bit rattling because I'd never had to process that before. I got physically ill over a series of days afterwards from the stress because it was so disorienting in a sense. Have you ever been fired or laid off?
No.
You're also so highly competent. You would probably, like, people can't fire you.
I'm sure they could find a reason.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but had you been laid off?
This is so funny, you guys, because I talked to two people that I currently work with, and one guy's at my church, and he was very involved. Now he's like a consultant or whatever, but he was involved in Silicon Valley in like a lot of .com stuff, and he's very done a lot in technology and whatever. And he was talking about this, like, changing your toothbrush. I mean, he's like, I've been laid off, I think 8 or 9 times. Like,
that's
I'd get
Ron
into a
and Mike
company,
were.
work there a year. I mean, it was just very assumptive for him. And I think, and then the other guy at work he was a lot more in ministry context, but he was like, yeah, I've gotten laid off, I've gotten fired, I've gotten whatever. There's been like super toxic leadership. And so this, something folded or whatever. So I was like, man, I feel like when you're in ministry context, there tends to be more longevity, which has its own challenges, probably, people staying too long. But yeah, I hear you.
Well, and the other layer that I don't know how you connect to this, but when your name and your face are used as a brand, in a sense, for a long period of time, when you get laid off, it's not just like, for most people, you get laid off and the only people who know are the ones you tell and the ones you work with. For us, it's like, attention world, we don't want Brian anymore, and now, like, I've spent months not just processing it myself, but also comforting other people about me being laid off.
Right.
Yeah.
And you may not be there yet, but it's a weird thing. Have you experienced much of that?
So it's funny because of where we are right now, we have not yet publicly messaged to our actual audience, which is mostly young adults. So I haven't gotten that. But the Sunday after I got laid off, or was told that this would be sunsetting, I mentioned this in my Sunday school class at church, which is quite large and it's very multi-generational. And I just, we were sharing prayer requests, and I said, hey, folks, well, this is going to happen. And so I would just love prayer for direction and God's leading and stuff. And as I said it, there were like 3 women in the room who actually shrieked. And it was, like, I felt like I was put exactly in that position. And one of them in particular is so, like, she's the parent of young adults, and she is a faithful listener to my podcast because it's her way of understanding her kids. So she goes, I mean, it's like clockwork. She goes on a walk and she listens to the Boundless show, and it's her thing. And so she is grieving this, and she's like, and then she knows her daughter has young adult friends who listen, like in Mississippi and all this stuff. And she's like, well, I'm going to have to tell them. And so I'm like, okay. So I feel like I'm like second, third level messaging in a really weird way. And that has been the comforting of almost having to justify, like, and I don't know if you guys felt this, but it's weird because it feels like there's a sense of me kind of being blamed for this happening because, like, well, how did this come about? How could this have happened? And trusting, or not trusting, I guess, that, hey, this has happened and it's okay. Something, so like you said, mitigating other people's emotions for their responses to it.
And they're trying to be loving and caring in doing it.
We saw 2 or 3 times, and I was overseeing all of the text messages on our last 3 days of, like, coming in. We saw 2 or 3 times either during those last 3 days or like in the days following on social media, well, if you would have told us, like, the listeners could have done something about it. I was like, do not blame me for me losing my job.
Yeah.
No, It was a done deal. When we found out, there was nothing you can do.
Yeah, and then there's also the category of people who want to grab pitchforks and torches and go like wreck stuff.
Which
and
feels
that's
kind of
not,
nice.
it feels nice, but it's also like, we need to move towards acceptance.
Yes.
And so let's do that together, because it's never worked in any media organization to like get so mad at management that they go, never mind. Okay, we'll keep Lisa. Yeah, you guys are right. And then the sweet one for me is the people I've encountered individually who were such big fans. They were like personally devastated. And as they're telling me this, they kind of go, oh, right, but I bet it was harder for you because it's your actual job. And I have to go like, no, it's okay. I understand. This is disruptive to your life. And this is relational. So it adds layers to what it's like to be laid off. And now the next thing would be, how do you know what's next? It's because you don't have a choice. You can't go like, well, I'm going to collect Social Security now and retire. I'm not either. Lauren got a job 10 seconds later. It was amazing. Like, we had someone in with us that was weeping along with us. The show was over, who was an executive at a ministry here in town, and snapped up Lauren as quick as she could. And I don't blame her. So Lauren got a full-time job quickly. But how are you figuring out what's next for you? You've been at Focus for how long?
Yeah. So I've been at Focus twice. And I think people think, it's funny. I'll give you a little flyover here, especially when I talk to the 20-somethings who read Boundless and listen to the show. They think, Lisa, your job's so awesome. Like, you just go on air and talk to people and you lead this ministry and you speak and whatever. And I have to remind them that my 20s were super lame. Okay. So in my 20s, I did some really awesome things and I did some really lame things. And then practically right out of college, I came to Focus for the first time. And I worked only a year and a half at Focus as a writer, got into one of our divisions doing that. But then I was restless and it was a very kind of one-track job and all that. So I left and I did a lot of temping. I did some freelancing. I did different things. I landed in a pharmaceutical company. Then I did a stint out in Washington, D.C. at the Washington Times. So I've kind of been and done a few other things. And I think... So I say that to say that I've been at Focus twice, because I came back to Focus after all of that in the context of leading our public relations team. So I moved from journalism into more public relations. And so I led that at Focus for 11 years. And I do say to all PR professionals, you have not done PR unless you've done it for Focus on Family or someone else some other organization where people decidedly are either they love you or they hate you, because you will get it from both sides. Anyway, all that to say, with both of my tours put together, I am now at what I think is close to 27 years total at Focus on the Family.
That's disorienting to have to restart after that. For me, it was 17 years at Moody Bible Institute.
Yeah. And I was telling you guys a while ago that I'm in the position now. And again, I'm very grateful to have a bit of an off ramp, and it's allowed me to shore things up and do whatever preparation I can. But I didn't have a resume. I mean, my resume is like college level, like what post, so I've got to do that. I got to figure out what foot am I putting forward here? And honestly, I've even said this to a number of people, and I'm sure both of you can resonate with this doing what you do. I said, there are just times when I wish I were like a CPA. And it's like CPAs know where, like, you can go on Indeed and be like CPA.
Right.
Okay. Or, blah, 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 or I'm an accountant, I'm a whatever. What do I even do?
Yes.
Like, what is my job? I don't know. What's my skill set? That kind of stuff. So that adds another layer of just uncertainty. So I think at this point, it's walking it out a day at a time, figuring out and I'm trying to take the time to think this through well, of what do I enjoy doing? What am I good at doing? putting those together in a little Venn diagram, and then hopefully adding to that, what will I have the opportunity to do as I put the word out there, that I'd like to find another opportunity. And right now I'm working kind of in a process of elimination of things where I'm like, okay, I don't feel like I want to do this anymore, or I don't want to continue to do this, or I don't want to go into that. So that's helping with some clarity. But at this point of us talking today, I'm still completely open season on what God has next.
Boy, that's so similar to what I experienced, Lisa, where
Yeah.
a lot of people have had good suggestions about things I would be good at. And then I have to say, yeah, it's a good idea. I'm not qualified for that. Like, you know what you should do? You should be like a spokesperson for a company. I said, well, first of all, it's not a job. Second of all, I don't have a marketing degree. Like, and so I've had a hard time figuring out as I worked in an industry that is either changing dramatically or dying, one of the two, for a very long time. And so unless I want to pick up and move and become the station manager in Paducah, Kentucky, which I don't, I've got to leave the field. And so what does that mean for me for the next 15 years of my life? And what are my qualifications? And then you're also saying this because I have qualifications to be a teacher, but I don't want to be one.
Right.
And I'm 46 and I'm not going to spend the next 15, 20 years of my life doing something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to be miserable.
That's clarity. That is clarity. So you got to be able to check that box and say, I'm not moving in that direction, even though the pressure is there to do that.
And just because I can do something doesn't mean it's what I should do. And I think this is a lot of things. I think Christians overlook this sometimes. There's a lot of things you could do, but it's okay to say, I don't want to do that.
Right. Although I do want to tell you something, Brian, because if talking to 20 and 30 somethings for as long as I have, and at hiring and firing and as many people as I have in what I've done in recent years, I don't think anyone cares that you don't have a marketing degree. I'm going to tell you that straight up. Like, I think that this idea that we have to have certain degrees to do certain things is totally bogus. Like, I'm thinking of the people that I've hired. I 100% don't care where they went to school. I'll tell you that right now. Like, I don't care.
Good, because I went to Winona State.
People that are like, well, I dropped $200,000 on my degree. I'm like, that is unfortunate because you're going to have to pay that off. Okay. So, I mean, that's 100%. But even like, especially when you're moving in and out of anything in the liberal arts realm, I think even as I hire interns, I'm looking for those interns that are like scrappy, that can put 3 sentences together, that can learn something new, that can whatever. And so, like, I would say for you, although this is going to play into something else I'm going to say that's a little bit annoying about what people, try to tell you or how they try to help you. But I absolutely think you could be. Now, granted, it needs to be a job, but a spokesperson for a company or whatever, and that would be in whatever role, because the raw materials of you being able to think quick on your feet, to be articulate, to be all these things are gold. Some people can't do that. Some people can barely share a prayer request in Bible study, so so be okay with that. And it's almost like as I'm thinking of doing my resume now, I'm thinking of like, what are skills that I need to put forward rather than, oh, do I have these degrees or do I have these certifications? I used to date. This is going to be awkward because I'm going to bring a dating story into a job conversation. I mean, let's do it. I dated a guy who was constantly like accumulating degrees and certifications. And you know why he was? Because he didn't have the EQ and the interpersonal chops to get hired without those. So he had to give this big display of like, now I have a project management certificate. Now I have an MBA. Now I have and by the way, I just filled my garage with Krav Maga training equipment. Okay, well, what does that have to do with it? So I'm just like, okay. And I actually said, I didn't say this to him. So this is not the reason we broke up. There were other very legitimate reasons why we broke up. But I remember thinking to myself, or you could figure out like how to actually relate to people and have a conversation and be a winsome type person that people actually want to work with. Because I always say this when I hire people, I'm like, can you do the job Do you like, so let me use an actual example. When I was hiring for PR roles, I wanted three things. Can you write? Can you sell? Because you're actually selling guests for shows and, promoting them and stuff. And three, do I want to go to lunch with you? Because honestly, if I have to work with you for the next 5 years, I want to be with someone that I actually want to talk to and not just be like 8 to 5 clock watcher, you're annoying, but you're doing the job, whatever. So that's what I say. That's my little word about
that's
that.
so good. Another layer of my processing in this I've done with my wife, and it's a philosophical approach to the end of my work life over the next 20 years. And it's the way Sarah phrases it: do I want to work to live or live to work?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convinced, and this is maybe just Brian being melodramatic, corporate America has gotten to the point where they expect you to make your work your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
so I'm limiting my options. I've got some kids. I've got a sixth grader and an eighth grader or seventh grader no, he's in eighth grade. Sorry, Matt.
Don't look at me. I don't know.
That I've moved twice for work.
Yeah.
And unless the Lord forces me, I'm not doing that again to my kids. So I don't want to be I'm making my own options limited. And so I may need to philosophically shift to say, listen, I don't really care what I do. Yeah. I just need to have my bills paid and focus on living my life. It's a significant shift in thinking for us.
Yeah. I think there's two, and this is another thing I've really been wrestling through lately. This idea, the assumption that everything career-wise in our lives has to be linear and it has to be progressively bigger and better. Mm-hmm. Like, right. I don't know. I mean, I feel like people live under that construct way too much in the sense of like, okay, well, I did this, and now that I've run a website and hosted a show and run a ministry for X number of years, I can't do anything too different from that or less than that or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? Jesus entered public ministry as a 30-year-old, and he spent 3 years like walking around. Okay.
Unemployed.
He didn't. I mean, this guy could have chosen any time in history, with the exception of, the fact that, okay, actual things were prophesied, including that he'd die on a Roman cross. So that delineated him. But okay, but if you think that he could have picked any time to float into history and do his ministry, he could have come now and built a following on X and filled out arenas and had a podcast and done all the things and had a huge overlay of influence. And he chose to come into the first century in the Middle East and walk around and just look at people and talk to them in person. And I'm like, if he's my example, I need to be okay with that, because he's taking marching orders from the Father, and I need to be willing to do that too. And it might not look like the way that I think it should, or that the platforms that have been established by people in their minds or elsewhere would speak to. And so I have to constantly remind myself of that, because of course I'm called to make a living and support myself and whatever. But this idea that we always have to be doing bigger and better and have something that's super impressive, it's just not biblical.
No, it's not biblical at all. In fact, Paul talked about that too, right? Where he says essentially, I could have lived off donations from you, but I chose to be a tent maker. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wouldn't be a burden. And I had a friend tell me recently, like, well, Paul was a tent maker. You could do it. It doesn't matter what you do. And I've actually had a new appreciation in this season in life for what I would call blue collar culture. So white collar American culture is, hey, I'm Brian, what do you do? And you're really defining yourself by what you do. And it really needs to be bigger and better. I found in more of a blue collar environment, which is, I say the community I live in is much more rural blue collar. Nobody cares what you do.
Yeah.
And they're not asking because they're disinterested. Like they don't, it doesn't matter. Like, and I've expected people to be like interested in what I used to do, or that they're going to size me up based on it. Nobody cares. And it's beautiful. I think that's much more biblical, where it's like, it doesn't matter what you do. It matters that you work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. My dad actually had a, what I would call a reverse career trajectory.
Huh.
And it was a very hard, it was very hard for him because my dad his dream was to be a missionary. And when he and my mom finished seminary, and this was back in the 50s, so they finished seminary and they ended up going to the Philippines, and they were there in the 50s and in the 60s, and then they
with nothing to do on Saturday night.
With nothing to do on Saturday night. And then, just to keep the story short, they basically got kicked off the mission field because of interpersonal stuff with missionaries. And back then, you didn't have these like mediators and stuff who would help missionaries work out their stuff and do counseling and all that. So they were just told the way to solve the problem was, let's keep the Andersons home. They were home on furlough, and so they were just told they weren't going to go back. And there was reconciliation in that. There were missionaries that came and apologized decades later. And so there was healing and stuff. But so he went from that to a pastorate. He was laid off from at least one, I think 2 pastorates because of other just situations. And then by the time we moved to California, which is where I grew up, he had worked in a snowmobile factory. He'd worked in a gun factory. He, when we got out to California, he worked maintenance and custodial for a large church for almost the entire duration of us living out there. Then he started doing custodial for a small ministry there. Then he did Meals on Wheels. And then my folks retired to Minnesota again, and he did chaplaincy work for a nursing home, which gave him a lot of joy. He was back in his sweet spot. And then his last job before passing away from cancer, he made $12 an hour, and that was the most he'd ever made in his life. And so I always think of that but he was faithful, and he was doing he was supporting our family. He was doing what God called him to do, and he was walking it out. And I think there was a lot of grief in that for him, and he had to wrestle through that a lot throughout his life and his career. But man, when we had his funeral, there were people there who showed up who we didn't even know who these people were. And they're like, I came back to church because of your dad. I got saved because of your dad. Your dad witnessed to me in the produce aisle at the grocery store. And it was just the impact there. I mean, the people that actually came out for his funeral, that some flew there to be at his funeral, and we didn't even know who these people were. They were neighbors and former coworkers and former friends. So, yeah, I just think of that when I think of what is impact and when God chooses to use you, it might not look like something on a resume, but it definitely will matter.
That's a beautiful story. And I can tell you admire that about your dad.
Oh, for sure. 100%. He was, in fact, when I was in middle school, I was a latchkey kid because both my parents worked because we were poor, which is why I didn't have all the Barbie stuff that Lauren had. Whatever. But no, I would go summers because I ended up a summer at home by myself, literally with a list of TV shows that I watched. Like I just went from one TV show to the next all day, including 3 different soap operas.
Of course.
And so I think that got to the point where when I missed a day, I would call these hotlines to get the updates. And I think my parents were like, we're like in ministry. We can't have a daughter who's doing this.
Calling
so there was
hotlines,
a certain amount of
soap opera hotlines.
There was a certain amount of shame around that.
What happened to the evil twin?
My dad pulled me into work with him, and this was him doing custodial and maintenance for a large church. And I remember him walking, like one summer, we reupholstered all of the chairs in the fellowship hall. And I remember as we were setting them up, and this was every time I went in with him, he would walk through and he would take the chairs and he'd be like straightening them like an inch each, just lining everything up and walking around the campus, picking up trash. Someone would throw something out of their car, he would pick it up. And it was just, yeah, he was just faithful, and it was very much a behind the scenes existence that he lived, and yeah, just something to emulate for sure.
It's beautiful, and I think it's a good reminder for all of us. And you know, Lisa Anderson is not owed a platform. We aren't owed a platform. This podcast may not last that long. We're just asked to be faithful, and it makes me think of if someone needs more like to think about on this. I brought it up before, but one of my favorite books on this it's an old one. It's called Practicing the Presence of God. Practicing the Presence of God, or Practicing God's Presence?
God's Presence, I think.
By Brother Lawrence. And he was a guy in like the 1600s or something who was a monk in a monastery that essentially peeled potatoes and mopped floors. and he had a love for Jesus that is to be admired for centuries. And so it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
So I hope that the Lord guides you to your next thing, whatever that might be, whether it's peeling potatoes or president of the United States.
Oh my gosh.
I'd vote for you, Lisa.
Me too.
100%. And what's good and what I want to leave with people is just the reminder that it doesn't matter what, I mean, as far as getting a job or finding a career or doing all these things, those things depend on other people. Like someone has to be wanting to hire me for that to happen. I can't singularly control that. What I can control is what I am doing with myself in the meantime. And I think that's important. And I was reading not too long ago it's a classic, a very short book on finding God's will by John MacArthur. And the things that impressed me that he gave, like, I think it was 5 things or something that you do in order to find the process of God's will. And the first 2 are, they're so assumptive. You have to be saved because God's will is not declared to people who don't know him. You know, I mean, he might work circumstances out to move people around, you know, even who don't know him, and to work. Obviously, his sovereign will is over everyone. But he cares about his own, and he is very much listening to the prayers of his people. So be saved, y'all. That's going to be a great start. And then second, he said, you have to be spirit filled. And that's something that I can work on too. And so this idea of like, we're all given the Holy Spirit upon our conversion, but what kind of reign we give the Spirit over our lives and how we fill ourselves with the Spirit and how we walk out in obedience to the Spirit, whatever we've been given, is important to consider. And the more Spirit filled we are, the more we're going to be attuned to the Spirit's work in us. And like he gave this as an example, he said, there are so many, and this is like, I'm hearing so many of my 20-somethings say this, but I need to preach this to myself too. He's like, so many of you are like, God, help me find a spouse, or help me find my next job, or help me make more money, or whatever. But the problem is you're back here not even obeying the stuff I've already given you to do. So be faithful in that, and then wait for your next assignment. Because if you're out here stealing Post-it notes from your employer, and yet you want to be given more responsibility and more honor in the workplace and whatever, I don't have that for you because you're over here not being faithful with this assignment. So that kind of thing is so important. And then he just talks about, then you're going to straight up have to deal with some suffering, with some sacrifice, with some sanctification. All of those things are going to come into place to make you who you are. And then once you are there, once you are in step with God and just trusting him with everything in your life and being faithful in the little things, then you're going to get that Venn diagram that I was talking about, which is just like, then it's open season. Then you're looking at scripture and you're like, as long as it's not prohibited in scripture, I can go in any one of these 5 directions. And that's very freeing. And I hope it is for people, for me to say, okay, I don't have to be constrained by where I've been or who I know or what I've done in the past. God might be calling me to something totally different. And am I here for it? And am I going to walk forward boldly and in faith?
That's so good. And you're such a good communicator.
That's my sermonette for y'all today.
No, it's so great. Lisa Anderson, you're our favorite. How do people connect with you? I don't know how you want to communicate that for an episode coming out at the very end of 2025. Socials?
I know. Yeah. If people find me on social, find me on Facebook at Lisa C. Anderson, I think. If they want to find me on Instagram, I think you have to reverse it, Anderson Lisa C. Or just search, Lisa Boundless, and you'll find me. So yeah, I would love for people to stay in touch or give any commentaries of, maybe don't send me a list of like 12 places I should apply. or like if you try, or don't tell me I need to be a corporate spokesperson.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
that's Brian's job. He has to do
right.
that.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that one to open up.
Yeah, for sure.
But please don't be a stranger. We don't care that you're not going to be doing Boundless anymore. You're still going to be our favorite guest.
Oh,
Just Lisa.
Thank you so much. Well, you two are literally the best. I had such a great time. I mean, you did allude to the fact that I came out to Cleveland. You still post that photo, like acting like, I thought you were the funniest person ever.
It's a great picture. It looks like you're just dying at, man, this guy's entertaining.
I was very accommodating with whatever
Yeah,
Brian was
right.
thinking he was being funny about. But yeah, no, it was fantastic. And so we'll have to get together again. We'll have to make this happen in person. So
I would love that. And if you want to connect to us, it's not hard.
You go to stainedglass-media.com.
All right, that does it for today's episode of the Third Place Podcast. Hey, before you go, don't forget, this episode was made possible through our brand new nonprofit, the Cleveland Ministry Collective. If you want to support our efforts to connect and uplift Northeast Ohio ministries, would you consider a tax-deductible donation? We could really use your help launching our new ministry. Give today at clevelandministrycollective.org. That's clevelandministrycollective.org. Talk to you next time.